I want to take a minute and address why most horses, at least in the United States, are started as 2-year-olds. I'm talking about American quarter horse type horses. I know I have a lot of followers all over the world. You start talking about European warm bloods or other breeds of horses in other parts of the country, it might be different. I'm talking about American quarter horse type horses. So today I'm riding Indy. Indy is a 2-year-old that I started a couple of months ago. Every time I post a video about working a 2-year-old, I always get a comment, something like, "What are you doing riding a 2-year-old? Don't you know they're not finished growing until they're 4 or 5 years old?" So what are the things that people take into consideration when they're deciding when to start a horse here in the United States with quarter horse type horses? One of the things you have to take into account is their brain. Is their brain matured to a point where they are ready to learn, capable of learning? Anybody that has had a child in school that is not being challenged in school is going to start getting in trouble. Different kids are going to get in trouble in different ways because their brain is not being challenged. These quarter horse type horses will reach that point usually during their 2-year-old year where their brain's not being challenged. These horses are bred to work. They're bred to work cows, they're bred to rope, they're bred to run, they are bred to do something. And if you don't start putting that brain to work, start giving that brain a job of some point, that horse is going to develop some issues that you're going to have to fix later. They start getting in trouble. Just like a kid in school that's not being challenged in school will get in trouble. So that's one thing to take into account is their brain. The brain has to be to a point where it is needing to be educated. The other thing you have to take into account is you do have to take into account the body. If I was to wait until the horse was completely mature as a 5-year-old, let's think about that from the aspect of 5 years old, 12 months out of the year, that horse is basically 60 months old. That horse has had 60 months to learn how to be a horse, to become the horse that he has become. And if I take and I start that horse at 5 and I put 90 days of riding on it, I have 3 months out of that 60 that I have trained that horse how to ride. As a percentage of that horse's life, that is a very small percentage. And at 60 months, that horse pretty much is the adult he's going to be. So if he's mature, physically mature at 60 months, I've put 3 months of influence on how his mind is grown into that mature horse. That's a very small percentage. I've had very little influence over that horse becoming a productive member of society, whether it's a pleasure riding horse, a trail riding horse, a show horse, a very small percentage. However, if I take a horse that's, say, 2.5, horse will be 30 months old, and then I put 3 months of riding on that horse, that is actually, I have twice the time as a percentage of that horse's life, but I have put that time into that horse's brain, developing him into a mature, productive member of society at a more influential stage of that horse's life. I did it when that horse was 2.5. That's going to be a lot more influential to that horse, developing that horse's mind, than it would be if I put 90 days on it when that horse is 5. So as I'm developing that horse's brain into becoming a productive member of society, like this horse here for instance, this horse is almost 3. We're at the end of this horse's 2-year-old year. So this horse is almost 3. This horse's brain is developing into becoming a productive horse. Now you say, well, why would you be concerned about your horse being a productive member of society? I'm sure I'm going to get somebody that has the opinion, well, horses should never be ridden, horses should all be turned loose and be wild horses. Well, the thing about that is, to me, horses are put here for our purpose, for our use, just like every other animal. I'm sure I'm going to get somebody with a different opinion, but that's not what my opinion is. All animals have been put here for our purpose. You get a dog, you have a pet, you are getting something out of that relationship. That dog is there. You have that dog for your purpose. It's no different with a horse. I have this horse here for a purpose. You have a fish in an aquarium, you're getting pleasure out of watching that fish swim around in that aquarium. That fish is there for your pleasure. That fish has a purpose. It's no different with a horse. This horse is here for our pleasure. There's Mustangs running wild out west. Horses are not native to the United States. There were no horses here before the Spanish brought them. Those horses are not really wild horses. They are feral horses. And they are not native to the United States. So you have the opinion that all horses should be running wild and free. That's not a very educated opinion, because there are no wild horses in the United States. There are feral horses. There are no wild horses. So let's get back to talking about the body structure of this horse. You get comments, a horse is not fully grown until he's 5 years old. That is true. He's not fully grown until he's 5 years old. But, like I said, that horse is here for a purpose. I need to mold that horse's muscle and mold that horse's body to do the job that that horse is going to do. The light work that we do with the 2-year-old does not stress the joints. We don't work them hard enough for that. I have a horse in the barn right now that's 22 years old, still winning checks, and she was started as a 2-year-old. It's not about the fact that they were ridden as a 2-year-old. It's about the fact of how they were ridden as a 2-year-old. You see this horse right here, I haven't done anything but walk and steer. Most of this horse's training is trotting, steering. Nothing to stress the joints, nothing to stress the bones. There's a lot of perception about the horse industry. A lot of back to thinking about thoroughbreds, because thoroughbreds and racehorses are so prominent. And look at the futurity running horses, and they're started as 2-year-olds, and they are pushed pretty hard, and some of them do break down. But that is not the norm in the horse industry. You start talking about thoroughbreds, you're talking about a lot leaner boned horse. They are bred to be faster. They're bred to run. They have leaner bone structure. They have a different muscle structure. Structurally, you're talking about a totally different horse in a thoroughbred than you are a quarter horse. Quarter horse is going to be more muscular. The bone structure is going to be denser. Say the cannon bone, the relationship of the length of the cannon bone to the diameter is going to be like polar opposites. A quarter horse is going to be more compact, more dense, where a thoroughbred is going to be lighter because they're bred to run. So you have to think about the bone structure, the bone type, when you're deciding when to start a horse. Now, of course, if you were to start a horse as a long yearling before it turns 2, you're going to create some problems. There is a point there where if you start it too early, you will create problems. You have to not just pick an arbitrary number and say, okay, horses should not be started below this age. The only people that pick arbitrary numbers are people that really are not educated about horses and their development as a whole. It's really easy to pick a number if you're not educated. Educate yourself. Really learn about horses, their horse body, their horse structure, and their horse development, their mental development and their physical development. And I'm sure I'm going to have people that disagree, and that's okay. But that's not going to change that people that are educated in performance horses knows when a horse can be started and not be a problem. You can wait and start later, and there's going to be problems. There's going to be a whole lot more problems starting a quarter horse at 5 years old than there's going to be at 2 years old. I've started horses as young as 2. The oldest horse I've started was a 17-year-old Arabian mare. There's always going to be problems, more problems starting a horse older than if you start them at 2. You have to be smart about how you start them, but they're better off. American quarter horse type horses are better off being started as 2-year-olds. Until next time, thank you for watching.